For our next guest in the series, we found ourselves at a really cool recording studio in Lower Manhattan, where we were meeting up with Josselyn Simpson, who's another top-class practitioner and leader in our series. She's the editorial head at well-known talent and advisory firm Heidrick Struggles. She's been there a while and brought a grounding at other august institutions in media, consulting and research, where she was, much like our agency, helping people with their insights and thought leadership from the outside. Her team sits parallel to marketing and PR, and they all report into the same VP for marketing and performance, which I think is telling. So you're going to hear some really solid advice from her. She talked to me about staying close to clients' questions, which is a common theme in great content, and also helping clients learn from each other. We talked quite a bit about where you can be most credible. Those were her words. And I think I introduced the term shot selection here, but she talked about really intentional shot selection in what you do, especially as a smaller team. And she talked about what she called the most important metric, which I'm not going to reveal right now. You're going to have to listen for that. And also she was really interesting about what she calls leadership assurance. Again, I'll let her explain. Anyway, I think it's time for our next episode.
And now, as part of Collective Content's SenseMaker Session podcast, today's content leader is Josselyn Simpson, VP and Global Editorial Director at Heidrick Struggles, the well-known firm that helps companies find senior talent and improve how their top teams work. With thanks to our sponsor, Highbeam Global, a global full-service market research firm, today's episode was filmed October 2025 at Dubway Studios, New York City.
So Josselyn Simpson from Heidrick Struggles, thank you so much for being our latest sense maker and joining us for this depth interview. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Great. I want to start by finding out who you really are. Well, we know who you are, but like what some things about you that maybe other people haven't found out in your career. So I'd love to hear about your career journey and what makes you tick. Mm-hmm. And like some other people we've spoken to in this series, like many of my colleagues like me, you had a grounding in journalism early on in your career. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that and where you were, because it's somewhere pretty august.
It was great fun. But before that, I was that child who always liked to read.
Okay.
I did literally like reading the encyclopedia as a child, and I learned all sorts of good stuff. And then I was a philosophy concentrator at college, which, of course, made my entire family despair that I would ever be gainfully employed. So I promptly got a job at The New Yorker, which was terrific. I was a fact checker there first and for most of my time there, and it was just a great way to learn about every part of publishing, writing, editing, what the publishing process was like. It was a wonderful place to grow up.
Yeah, and for having an encyclopedic knowledge of anything and being a fact checker, I mean, that's that sort of legendary role that people refer to there.
It was, and it was really great. It was just a terrific grounding.
So you're there sort of almost 5 years or so.
A bit longer, but then.
Bit longer. Okay, and then you've switched careers as well. And again, similar to a number of other people we know, you had a real grounding at McKinsey as well. Mm-hmm. So tell us about those years.
It was an interesting connection. It was through an alumni connection that I discovered the whole world of management consultancies. I didn't really know what they did or how they existed, and I was trying to figure out my next step in magazine publishing, and someone told me about this world where they cared a lot about writing and editing and communicating, and they weren't dependent on advertisements for mascara.
Right.
And I thought, wow, that sounds great. Started to explore and was lucky enough to land at McKinsey, which was, as you say, a second great place to grow up and learn the thought leadership world.
And what did you do there?
I was first a general editor, and in my later years, I focused in two areas. One was with the organization practice, which feeds very much into what I do now at Heidrick. And the second was I was one of a small group of people who founded McKinsey's survey program.
Okay.
So the publisher of the quarterly at the time had this realization that we had lots and lots of email addresses and we could do more with them than send emails. So we began the survey program that is still very, very successful at McKinsey, and was a lot of fun to figure out how to do.
Yeah, that sounds like a different age. Saying, couldn't we do something with these emails? Funnily enough,
cool.
Yeah, wow. And then you went on and you said something really interesting to me as we've spoken about this session. And you went to the Economist Intelligence Unit. I absolutely want you to tell me anything about that. But it was the idea of like then serving others. You've had that view, like from my kind of shoes and from other people's shoes, that when you're helping people with their thought leadership and research from the outside. So say a bit more about that.
It was fascinating because I, been at McKinsey and then at Booz and Company. And in both of those cases, we were developing thought leadership driven by those firms' consultants with their ideas. And at the EIU, we were developing ideas to sell to clients. So we were essentially working for companies that didn't have their own thought leadership functions and wanted thought leadership. And so what I learned there was how consultants use thought leadership to share their ideas, how it can be a selling tool, because I was also trying to get someone to put a hard commercial value on my ideas. So it really just sharpened my whole sense of how thought leadership really works for firms and encourages me to really push to hone our ideas and understand how it works, not just why it works.
Right. And we'll get it further into this, but I just want to ask now that do you feel that people get it more now and it's more appreciated than it might have been, say, 15 years ago?
Certainly a lot more people are doing it.
Right.
And
that sounds like you're evading an answer there.
No, I'm heading toward an answer.
Okay.
A lot more people are doing it because a lot more people understand the value.
Okay.
But I also think that there's a lot of middle ground of something that is sort of marketing, sort of a hard sell, not more
right.
and other stuff that is more sort of traditionally pure thought leadership. And I think there's a lot of stuff in the middle, and I think that can muddle the value of it.
Yeah, and if you scale it incredibly fast, as some people are inclined to do now, maybe the muddling gets even muddier or muddled.
Yes, muddled in the middle.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, so we'll come back to that. I'd love to hear about your responsibilities now. And I think most people listening or watching this would have heard of Heidrick Struggles, and everyone gets executive search, the advisory capacity, and why that you have to be thought leaders as well. But tell us about your setup, your team, your expectations around output, who you report into even.
So I sit as a standalone function parallel to the person who leads our marketing and PR. And we both report into a senior vice president for marketing and performance. So we are parallel to a marketing function, but not sitting directly in a marketing function in the way that many thought leadership teams do. And I think that just underscores the focus we have on making connections with clients. So it's our core metric. I know we'll talk about that later. And one of the things that drew me to Heidrick is a hard focus on staying really close to clients' questions, what they want to know, what our consultants are hearing, and how we can find things out, do surveys, interview clients, convene them to help them learn from each other.
Yeah, and that's I would say that's a blanket good thing for every not just consultant, but everyone in B2B to stay close to those client or customer questions. That's where the gold is. Yeah. And I don't think I'm saying anything original in saying that, but
it's always good to underscore it because it can, sometimes they're great research ideas, but how tightly tied are they to what the clients want to know today? And
following up on that setup where you're parallel to your colleague in marketing and PR, do your goals roll up together, or have you got very separate sets of goals? Is it maybe even a bit competitive?
Not competitive. Okay. We work really complementarily, but we do have different goals, and mine are largely about client conversations, and sort of throughout the whole process of developing any piece of thought leadership. And the marketing goals have to do with those, but also things like downloads and web visits and follows and lots of other things.
We
And
hear
those matter. Sorry, those matter with the thought
yeah.
leadership, but they're secondary to the conversations.
Okay, I see. And we hear from people in your kind of role how quite often you will help with, say, PR, and because you have that writing, editing, content expertise, and often that can help fuel certain campaigns or reactions. Does that happen with you?
We work a lot with our PR team, and they're an internal team, and tell them what we've got and why it's cool. But they actually develop the press releases and do the media outreach themselves.
Okay, I think we've covered some of the what does content really mean at Heidrick. How hands-on are you? I mean, are you sort of rolling up your sleeves and editing long-form reports these days, or are you much more strategic? And
I'm pretty hands-on still. We're a small team internally.
Yeah.
We're just 7.
Okay.
And I am hands-on, which I really like. But I think it's always good to have the balance of having a little bit more strategic time as well. And I think that's something a lot of my peers struggle with too, is just finding that right balance. But we are writing a book, which is really exciting. 2 of our senior partners are doing a book that will be published by Harvard next year. And it's terrific. But I also think when that's done, I'll have a little more thinking time.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty full on.
Yes.
Can you give us any glimpse of what it might be called or what it's about?
It is called Show Up to Win.
Okay.
And it is about navigating the role search process at a senior executive level.
Ah, okay. So I get that. And that's, as I say, it's a big undertaking, and you've been pretty hands-on with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's been great working with the 2 senior partners who are writing it, because it's also given me a really deeper look at what a lot of Heidrick does every day.
Okay.
So it's been great from that perspective as well.
I can't wait to get my copy when it's out.
I hope you'll love it.
Thank you. Yeah. I can only be honest. Something I picked up, this comes back to the idea of a team where resources are limited. You can't possibly do everything. I've heard you speak publicly before. And one this is a bit of a fragment of a quotation of yours. You talked about questions we ask the business that work out where we'll be most credible. So you're not trying to just ape what everyone else is talking about. And you can't just go for the white space where there's a subject that people are not talking about if that is not where you can be credible. Yes. So that sounds like a very intentional and careful kind of shot selection. Does that sort of ring true?
Yes, yeah, it does. I think as a firm that does leadership search and organization assessments, culture, consulting, that's where we're credible. We know about the people and how they lead and how they can work well together. We can't tell you what the next great strategic trend is going to be. We can't tell you where AI is going. We can tell you the people who can tell you that.
Right.
But as a firm, we need to focus on what we really know, which is leaders and how they work together to lead.
So even if you take a very broad subject such as the future of work, which I mean, I think even during the COVID years, that was really fueled as a content area. You wouldn't feel necessarily compelled to sort of comment on any aspect of that. It's very strategic shot selection, to use that phrase again.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the future of work is huge, and a lot of people have a lot of really smart things to say about it. So we want to make sure that what we're adding to that conversation is what we as a firm really know. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Let me turn our attention to a subject which we like to talk to everyone about, which is the ROI of what you're doing, and particularly your content. How do you do that at Heidrick?
As I mentioned, our most important metric is client conversations, and pre-publication of anything that's easy to track. We know how many clients we've interviewed. And we try to get our clients involved really early. So, for instance, when we're doing a survey, we recently did a survey of CHROs. We asked a couple of leading CHROs to review our questionnaire and give us their thoughts, and it was terrific. Really added a lot to it. And we can count all of those people, and they're great.
Yeah.
It's the other end, and this is everybody's problem. I'm sure everybody said a version of this. Once you let it out into the world, how many people are reading it? What is the effect of their reading it? We track that with a lot of individual one-on-one engagement with our consultants. Who did you send it to? What happened next? We're working on systems to try to put together some of those hard links that, the book, The ROI of Thought Leadership, did a great job of spelling out. I think most of us are still a long way from actually getting there.
Right.
But we're building those links. So we try to track conversations as much as we can, and then where we can, what happened next? Did a client engage the firm? Did the relationship get deeper? It's still messy, but we're working on it.
But I love having a very simple banner metric, which is those conversations. I'm still always, asking the question, like, how do you really track it? Because it seems to me it's still a manual process with some very senior, busy people who want to have those conversations, but maybe don't always think about, well, we need to let people know we've had every conversation.
And it is necessarily at this point incomplete, but maybe, we keep trying to figure out ways to make it easier, ways to make it more automated. And one day someone will figure it out, and I hope it will be us. Yeah.
And I can only imagine there are uses for technology and, as you say, making it as easy as possible for people to report back to you like that. What just to stay on this subject, what else do you track? And what do you think is like overkill? I mean, some people have dashboards which run to hundreds of data points, and it's very hard, especially to explain to, say, the board or someone who's handling budget.
It's another reason to focus on simplicity of metrics. And you asked about that, and I think the point of having a metric is to explain to other people how you're doing.
Right.
And it's true of thought leadership, it's true of sports, it's true of organizational performance. So whatever the metric is needs to be intuitively relevant to your audience. And that's why client conversations work so well. Everybody intuitively understands downloads, page views, those kinds of things. So that's why those are secondary metrics for us, and we do track them. Other things that can be useful then that we track on the margin are things like when clients ask to include our thought leadership in their own internal portals or for employee use.
Right.
And also the share of our partners and principals who are engaged with thought leadership one way or another, developing it, using it.
Yeah. We often talk about the value of small audiences. And one thing that came up as we were talking about metrics and digital and all those kind of classic online metrics, you pointed out to me, you said, look, something can be offline. Something can be used in a meeting or in a meeting someone for the first time, and there's no digital data point there, but it's extremely valuable.
Yes.
So it's kind of refreshing to me to hear that you've got that kind of confidence and clarity that can absolutely be justified.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. So far, we are justifying it.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to have you here for that reason. Let's turn inevitably to AI. Where might you use it and how?
So, well, like everybody, we've been experimenting a lot. There are a few concrete places we use it right now. One place is looking for white space out in the world and background research. So for that, of course, we use public AIs. We have an internal system, and we use that first to find out what we know internally. Also, we've been automating some thought leadership processes. The biggest time saver for us has been podcast summaries. So I guess we'll see what this conversation turns into. But
we better do a good job of that.
But we use it there. Sometimes we use it to test titles, just in that sort of brainstorming way, but it can give you 14 variants of the word AI or whatever you need. And we're also building, and I'm excited about this, we have an internal repository of frequently used survey and interview questions. And I've been talking with our tech team about how we can use AI to both query that and also, perhaps more important, help us write the variant we need now. So I'm really excited about where that will go.
We're hearing that kind of application of AI quite a bit, and taking out some of the grunt work and things like research, certain aspects. Is it is it something that you would experiment with sort of data for research? So some people are talking about synthetic data for panels and things like that, which has its issues because obviously it can start to age and maybe spout out some odd things, but also it's instant and it's not kind of 6 weeks of field work, that kind of thing.
At this point, we have not. We've looked at it. We've looked at it twice over the past 18 months or so, and both times we've concluded it wasn't in a place where it would work well for us and our audience.
Okay.
So we'll revisit it again, but right now we're not.
Okay. And you've used, in conversations we've had, you've used the phrase leadership assurance. How does that apply here?
It's something that AI has really underscored the importance of, but it's a topic we've been talking about as a firm for a while. Our CEO likes to use the phrase, leadership is an observable economic phenomenon. And what he means by that is that good leadership is linked to stronger financial performance or organizational performance. And we know that a lot of leaders think that leadership is material. We know that majorities of them think that the quality of their leadership pipeline will have an increasing influence on their valuation over the next 5 years. We also know that only about a quarter of leaders say that they manage their leadership pipeline in a way that we can consider strategic. There are a lot of reasons for that. A lot of them are good reasons, but as it gets increasingly important, we think more of them need to be thinking about it strategically. And this links back to AI because, about 3 years ago when AI suddenly popped up, almost every company started thinking about what it would do to their strategy, what it would do to their competitive situation, how it could help their operations. Far fewer started to think about what that meant for their leadership, what their leaders needed to know, or how their leaders might be helped by AI, whether any of them might be replaced by AI. And we do know that the companies that started thinking about the leadership implications along with the strategic implications earlier are more confident in where they are now. At every level, executives need to be able to ask smart questions. So they need to get informed. Everyone, we think, will soon, if not already, need to be AI fluent in a way that maybe 15 years ago, there was digital fluency. Mm-hmm. Everyone had to use a computer back when that was a new thing. Mm-hmm. We think that's going to be very, very soon, if not already the case. But there also need to be people who can ask the smart questions and really understand what it does. Yeah. And there still aren't so many of them.
And I was going to say, and that understanding also is about understanding where AI isn't the answer. Mm-hmm. And I would imagine where you can be fluent in things like Gen AI and use it day to day. Mm-hmm. But then if you've got your partners or any specialist, any subject matter expert there who is the right person to step in and say, no, that is just an average view. We actually have a more insightful view. Mm-hmm. That is a huge plus for you, isn't it?
I think for any organization, and I think also to really talk about where there need to be guardrails. There's a lot of talk about AI and human supervision and human sense checking. Right. But what do you sense check for? When do you sense check? That's what the people who really understand how the models work can be very valuable. Yeah. But the broader point is just whatever the strategic levers are that are influencing you, when you link your leadership planning directly to them, you're more confident. And we see in some cases a correlation with higher, stronger financial performance. And it's just something that AI really underscored for us because it happened so fast and so thoroughly.
Okay. I think in doing interviews like this and speaking as you are, that speaks to one of the things I know you really care about, which is transparency and just having these conversations. Mm-hmm. I saw another quote from you when someone was asking about authentic content. Mm-hmm. Which and I sense you really, really hate inauthentic content. I feel like that's something that doesn't even need to be said. But I think you said something like authenticity is based on transparency and consistency. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love those are things that we really believe in. And it's kind of it's never a campaign. It's from now forever. Mm-hmm. So you have to do those things week in, week out. Mm-hmm. Would you add anything to that about what authentic content that really works for Heidrick? Are there any other features you could point to?
I think it also comes back to the point we discussed earlier about choosing our shots.
Okay. Yeah.
We're
playing
going,
in those credible areas.
We're going to be credible. We're going to talk transparently about what we know, how we know it, or why we believe it, and we're going to, engage in a conversation with you about it. And I think all of those things are the things that still matter.
Yeah, I love that, and I think on a personal level and on a corporate level, there's something very powerful about saying we're not experts on that. We have no comment on that. And in a world where there's just too much sort of very average information out there, for any organization or person to say that, I really like that confidence when people have that. And why else is authenticity such an important thing in your kind of role?
I think as we see more and more content generated by AI or possibly generated by AI, being authentic leads to greater trust in the content that we're presenting and the content other firms who work in this way are presenting. It looks different. It feels different.
Yeah. And it has to obviously be authentic and sort of provably you.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yeah. I think so.
We're kind of close to wrapping up. I'm sure we'll speak again, but I wanted to ask you something we ask everyone, which is to cast your mind back. And we started off by talking about the early years of your career. So you're coming out of Harvard. You've got a degree, which we're like, oh yeah, what was she going to do with that? It turns out you did quite a lot, and this journey through through journalism. Through consulting, we barely mentioned your booze years, and I completely went over that for some reason. All the way through into
that
market
would be
research.
Booze and Company.
Booze and
just
Company.
To clarify.
Oh, okay. Well, I know what it's like when you've got their company name. You have to say it the right way. But anyway, I'm really tempted just to say booze again. But
it's not that late in the day.
Yeah. So and as I say, so market research through to where you are now, you've seen a lot. How can you look back on that? What would you say to yourself as you're 22 years old?
I would say broaden your horizons. And just because what you can do now with the work you love of writing and editing and thinking, just because what you can see that you can do with it right now is X, is magazine publishing or book publishing, doesn't mean that's all there is. So think widely, ask questions, look around out there, see what else you can do, discover the world of management consultancies in my case. But right. I think whatever it is that you love to do, there are almost certainly more places to do it than you can see right now.
I love that. That's a great place for us to finish up as well. Josselyn Simpson, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Wishing you all the best in the world for this. Hope to speak again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
This was the Collective Content Podcast, Sensemaker Sessions. Let us know what you'd like us to make sense of next.